think this is my first art theft.
Shh, don't make a sound. Oh, there it is.
Where is it?
There, right there. Modigliani. Let's grab it and go.
Oh, okay. I'm trying, but it's bolted on.
I should have brought someone with more art theft experience with me.
You wanted to bring someone else?
Just cut it out of the frame and let's go.
Okay, say no more. I'll just cut it out of the frame, like this. Do you know any art restorers?
This heist is getting very expensive.
What's that red light? You told me stealing art would be easy.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Whelan and welcome to Art Adventures.
And I'm Adriana Eftimie, and today we're talking about art theft.
Wow, art theft. That's one way to get an art collection. So how prevalent is art theft?
Well, art theft is a very significant problem in the art world and occurs quite often. There are thousands of art thefts every single year with just a small percentage of them recovered. The most common targets of art thefts are usually museums, art collections, galleries. Where we have money, we have thieves. Now here we have a Rembrandt, and this one along with many other paintings were stolen from Isabella Stewart Garden Museum in the 1990s, and they are still missing. How do art thieves get the job done?
The circumstances have a lot to do with how the art theft is actually carried out. Is it a building or a museum? Is it a private residence? Is there a lot of security? How big is the artwork? Some paintings can be really large. Some statues and sculptures can be really large. I think that most art theft really is planned out. There's a lot of money involved, as you've just mentioned.
Yes.
It's not really going to necessarily be just a crime of opportunity, someone just swiping something, although that does happen.
That does happen.
Yeah. Oh, fraud. That is when, okay, you come to me and say, oh, Elizabeth, I would like to borrow your $1 million Picasso for this art show. And I go, oh, I don't know who you are, Adriana, but for sure. Here, have it. And then the painting never comes back. That's one way for that to happen. And there's kind of an insidious second version of that, which relates back to forgery that we talked about last week, whereby when the painting is returned, the owner thinks they're getting back the painting, but they're actually getting back a fake. And now that valuable painting is out there on the market.
There are many unusual art thefts out there. Let's talk about the Scream by Edvard Munch, because this is a very famous painting. It's Norway's most famous painting, actually, and it has been stolen 2 times from Norway, just a few years apart. Now, one of these versions has actually been sold at the auction with $119 million. And all of these 4 versions, they are confusingly called the Scream. Now, the first theft was from a very big museum in Norway, the National Gallery Museum in Oslo. And this one has been hit by these very nice burglars because they basically, they were very nice because they went into the museum at midnight, they quietly broke a window, got in, went straight for a Scream, and they were out of there in just 50 seconds.
What?
This might
That's extreme.
be, yes, this might be the fastest art theft ever.
Yeah.
And they even had time to leave, have time to leave a note to the police saying, thank you for the poor security.
Oh, great. Thieves with a sense of humor.
Yes, and very fast.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when did they have time to write that note?
I know. I mean, they must have pre-written it.
Probably. They were finally caught and the painting recovered. But a few years later, in the Museum of Munch in Oslo, there was another robbery. Now, this was done by 2 men disguised as tourists. They got into the museum. They even got themselves a tour guide.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because they wanted to know where the painting was. So as soon as they got to the painting,
that's clever.
That's very clever. As soon as they got to the painting, they just pulled out the gun and threatened everyone around. Yes, they grabbed the 2 paintings, which is the Scream and also Madonna by Munch, and they left. On their way out, someone was standing outside, the bystander, and they even took a picture of them with the painting getting into the getaway car. Even with all this information, with the cameras, the photograph, and all the details they had about them, it still took them about 2 years to catch them.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
and the paintings were significantly damaged.
Oh, no.
Now let's talk about Munch's paintings, because they are very special, and there is a reason why they get stolen, right? Munch, how do you feel about Munch, Elizabeth?
Well, okay. So this is going to be terrible because this is now the second time that there's an artist whose work I initially did not care for. And I was like, what is the deal with this painting? But actually, once I saw some of his other artwork, I started to understand, why he painted what he did. And the scream really seems to resonate with people because of this emotion. And a lot of his other work seems to be trying to have the brushstroke sort of emulate the feeling of these different emotions. Once I started getting a better handle on what his work was like overall, I had a bit more of appreciation.
But would you have one of his paintings in your home?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. They seem to tend to be about a lot of misery and loneliness and death and angst and that kind of thing. Plus, I don't want somebody ripping them off. Obviously, they're now worth millions of dollars.
They are.
And so that's a real magnet.
That's true. Well, I wouldn't have any of his paintings in my home either, but because they are so emotionally charged. And the way he's painting is actually inspired by his own life, because a lot of the family around him died when he was very, very young.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the paintings he painted, he named love and pain, or death in the sick room, or anxiety, and all these feelings. I don't think these are feelings that you want into your own home, especially with the distorted or exaggerated colors and forms.
Yeah, and that one of the death in the sick room in particular, I mean, that's when I really started to appreciate him as an artist, because each of the people in that painting, they're each in their own grief. They're each dealing with this problem separately. And I think that is where he really does, where people do start to understand him, because he's talking about those basic human emotions. I'm not sure over breakfast that's necessarily what I want to look at.
Yes, that's true. Well, this doesn't mean that I don't appreciate him, and I don't appreciate his way of reinventing the way you approach painting, because in his time there weren't many similar painters who did this, and this was very innovative. This was something new that critics didn't like at first, but then they appreciated.
Yeah, and I think that this is a kind of a point that I like to make to people about looking at art in general, or going into a museum. You go into a museum and you think you're supposed to love everything. It's all supposed to be great. You're supposed to be in awe. And when you look around, you're like, I'm not sure I like that. Ooh, I really like that one. If I like a painting which doesn't happen to be the one that's the famous one, that is perfectly okay. Maybe I have particularly good taste.
That's true. And it's okay to have a positive or a negative reaction towards a painting. It's perfectly fine. That's why they're paintings. You need to react to them. What happens if someone discovers they own stolen art?
Oh, yeah.
Will they get in trouble?
Well, that's actually, it all depends. So yeah, the art world's a lot more careful these days about buying and selling artwork. I think people in general know, they understand more about provenance that we were talking about last week. The record basically from the artist all the way on, who owned it next. You want to have a nice understanding of where that art's been and is this the real thing? So provenance is really important. Having experts involved is important. I think one of the big messages is if you find you have stolen art, you may not get in trouble if the artwork can go back to whoever it actually belongs to. But you need the authorities involved in this. And there are crime units and there are museums and people who will help make that happen. But there's a really cool story I just heard about the other day. Yeah. And that is about this just happened a couple of years ago. These antiques dealers in New Mexico bought a bunch of stuff at an estate sale. When you go to an estate sale, you might have a bunch of things just like this and a painting or two. And they bought this lot to sell in their antique store. And they had this painting and they didn't think much of it. They put it out on display. And a couple of people came in and said, I think that's a painting by Willem de Kooning. And Willem de Kooning was an abstract expressionist, a pretty famous fellow.
Yep.
And so these antique dealers got a little concerned. So they moved it off the floor and they did some research online. And what's really cool nowadays, there are a lot of databases online where you can look up and find out what art has been stolen. And sure enough, they found out that the painting that they now owned had been stolen a number of years ago from a museum in Arizona. Mm-hmm. But they did the right thing. They immediately got on the phone. They called the police, they called the museum, they called conservators and said, hey, we think we found your painting. Now, it was in pretty bad condition, but over a couple of years, the painting has been restored and now it's hanging back where it's supposed to. So that's a wonderful, happy ending.
Don't wait for the authorities to come to you first. That's when you get in trouble.
So that's really what to do with it. But is there a profile of an art thief? I mean, you and I, we were dressed up in our masks and such, kind of a caricature. Yeah, we failed.
We definitely try. We try to put ourselves in their shoes. Well, didn't work that well.
But what are art thieves like? I mean, is there a sort of person who does this kind of thing?
Well, they come in all shapes and sizes. Most of them are indeed men. There have also been some ladies that have been involved in this art theft. And yeah, right. That's a good representation for us.
Yeah, we should lower percentages in that industry.
They do seem to have an appreciation of the art. Maybe they just recognize the value that they're about to steal, or maybe they want to get the artwork just for themselves and keep it in their home. Sometimes just hoarders and they don't even care to look at it, just to have it there. And some of them might even have a criminal record. Now, some of those ladies that I was telling you about, they are kind of unusual, actually. We have Rose Dugdale. She was well educated, and somehow she turned revolutionary. She was trying to help the Irish Republican Army to gather funds. And in this way, she and a few other fellows of her, they actually stole one of Vermeer's painting. Now, Vermeer again.
What is it with people wanting to do stuff with his paintings?
Leave Vermeer alone.
Exactly.
He's being forged, stolen, everything. Yes. The other story I wanted to tell you about was, well, I'm not very happy about this one, is because it's a Romanian Romanian woman. It's a mom and a son. The son, Radu Olgaru, he stole a few paintings with his friends, with his fellows, and they stole Matisse, Picasso, Gauguin, worth millions of dollars. Good taste, right? And in order for him not to get in jail, his mom thought, his mom, Olga, thought, well, I'm going to tell the investigators I burned the paintings into the oven of my sauna.
Oh, no.
Yes, I don't know how she thought this was going to get him out of trouble.
Right.
But as soon as she told them that, she probably regretted it because her lawyer said, oh, she was actually not being serious. But the forensics team, they went to her place, they did some studies on the ashes, and they discovered they were indeed burnt paintings in the oven.
No, she really did.
Yes, so paintings worth millions of dollars, they were just burned in some Romanian oven.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm not proud of that. I'm Romanian, in case you didn't know.
Well, luckily that's just a very small percentage.
Yeah, right? We have really good painters, by the way, so we're providing paintings as well.
That's good. Balance things out a bit.
We tried to steal our painting, our fake painting earlier, and we ended up with 2 paintings. Lucky us. Now, do you know of any other thefts where the art got damaged in the process?
Yeah, unfortunately, it happens. The thief might get worried that they're going to get caught. They may destroy the artwork. Their mom might get involved.
They want to help.
Yeah, but and it kills me to hear stories like that. And I'll probably say it again. Once an artist has died, the potential for having more work is zero. And so every single piece like that gets destroyed is part of a country's heritage. It's part of that artist's legacy, gone forever. And people, I just wish, if you're an art thief and you're holding some artwork and you want to destroy it, Please just like leave it in a bus station and call somebody. But so one of the particularly egregious damages that has happened to a piece of artwork, I particularly like the sculptor Henry Moore. He's a British sculptor. I think he died in 1986. Very prolific though, and known for these sort of semi-abstract, large, very semi-abstract bronzes. And here are a couple of them that we're showing you now. And you can see they're kind of figurative. They don't look like a real person reclining, but they're called reclining nudes. And so one of these was stolen from a sculpture part because a lot of them are out in nature. They look beautiful, out in place. So this was a 2-ton sculpture, and it was worth I think $3.4 million. So obviously money is involved there, and it seemed that there was a buyer in China. This whole sculpture was supposed to be shipped to China for somebody, and it got damaged before it left England. Oh, wow. And so no one really knows exactly what happened to the sculpture, but it is understood that it was melted down for scrap for an amount of about $1,500. It's just such a shame to know
or
that
just
that
bring
happened.
It back to the park.
Yeah, just bring it back to the park. Don't steal it in the first place. Have any art thieves ever returned artwork like that?
Oh, yes, they have. You steal something and you can sleep at night.
Right. What are you going to do?
And you shouldn't.
Right.
Or maybe they are just afraid they face criminal charges, right?
Yeah.
And they end up in jail. There's also the matter of negotiation. They sometimes negotiate with the authorities or with the owner of the artwork, and they decide if they bring it back, they'll get some money in return. So can you give me an example of someone who returned the art voluntarily?
Well, yeah, there is a guy, a very famous art thief, very prolific and very recent. He returned artwork, not necessarily voluntarily, completely. And this is one of the first paintings he stole, actually. This woman in a straw hat, obviously. She's wearing a straw hat. This guy's name is Stefan Breitweiser, and he is a Frenchman. He is living today. And in the 1990s and early 2000s, he stole around 200 works of art, and that means sculpture as well as paintings and all kinds of artifacts, that sort of thing, worth something like $1.4 billion. And this is one of those guys who was hoarding it. He and his girlfriend were living at his mother's house. They had a room in the house, and he was filling it with all this stuff. Evidently, this is not a mother who would go and clean her son's room because there were tapestries and paintings and sculptures and all kinds of stuff. And he obviously had a compulsion to do this sort of thing. He was eventually caught in 2001 in Switzerland, and it's kind of an odd story. He had stolen something or tried to steal something from a small museum one day, and a security guard had noticed. But Stefan came back another day, a couple of days later, to try to
never give up.
Yeah, never give up. I don't know what compelled him to do that. But somebody who was a journalist who was walking his dog on the grounds and knew about the story, recognized him and told the security guard. And the security guard called the authorities. They were able to arrest Stefan. And actually, the Swiss police gave the dog a lifetime's worth of dog food as a reward to help nab him. But there's a twist. And funnily enough, there's another mother. So it took the Swiss authorities almost a month to get the paperwork to search the premises. I don't know why that was. I don't know what the reason was for the delay, but during that time, Stefan's mother destroyed a great deal of the artwork. Yeah, I don't know, I mean,
why?
I don't know, but evidently she cut up paintings, threw away frames in the dumpster, put some stuff in the garbage disposal, and threw other items into the local river.
She was trying to get rid of evidence.
Yeah, exactly. So when the police finally came and looked around, they couldn't find anything. But I'm not exactly sure what the reason was that they started to realize that, these items were potentially in the river. But they started dragging the river and found a lot of the objects. Obviously, these 60 paintings and such are gone forever.
Yep.
So That's a frustrating thing in itself, but not only that, Breitweiser continued stealing. Even though he had, been caught, he wrote a book. He appeared on television shows about his thievery, but then he was caught again with more paintings. And in 2019, caught yet again trying to sell a paperweight on eBay.
Wow.
On eBay that was stolen from a museum. So that's the last record I saw of his trajectory. But I have no sympathy for this guy.
Nope.
Or his mother. I mean, what? Two mothers.
Two mothers.
Yeah. So, and a lot
help.
of the paintings that Breitweiser took, some of the ones destroyed were by people like Albrecht Dürer, Antoine Watteau, very famous names, but the works of art were not the most famous. They were ones that were being held in smaller museums, probably where it was easier to evade the security. Maybe the insurance wasn't so good. Maybe the cabinetry or whatever was easier to pry open. And that is definitely a risk when it comes to art theft. So you've seen me kind of in contortions over this business of artwork being destroyed. It just kills me as an artist. Adriana, what do you think about that?
Well, I feel the same. As an artist, we have a very strong opinion about our paintings because we put so much time and energy in painting. Sometimes it takes years involved in just one painting, making that one painting charged emotionally.
Right.
And then you have someone like Stefan who just comes by and is like, oh, I'll take this one.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, from an artist's point of view, it's very sad. It's just so sad. But there's also the matter of people generally. We need to have access to art. Art has been around for so many years and it's not going to leave. It's going to be here. And we need to be able to look at all these important artworks and just relive the history through them, right? Or just enjoy it. They need to be able to show them to the public.
But it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, we're creating originals, and by that, we are creating something that potentially has great value. Now, of course, I would love my work to be going for millions of dollars, and unfortunately, as of yet, it hasn't quite hit that.
It'll come.
And unfortunately for a lot of artists, it's after they're dead and there isn't going to be any more art. So people can't wait for that.
That's not true anymore, quite.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that, so it's a double-edged sword. We create these things, these originals, but we're also creating a value that then gets attached to them, which makes them prime targets for theft. And then with theft comes the potential for them to be destroyed. We've talked a lot about the thieves and the paintings and the thieves' mothers.
Yep.
But let's talk for a minute about the people who actually recover this. I alluded earlier to an antiquities trafficking unit that tries to recover antiquities and get them back to the right places. I imagine that there are specialized art crime squads. And who's most successful at getting the artwork back?
Well, that's a very good point. There are also people who try to retrieve the paintings. I would love, if I had a side job, I would love to be one of them.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm really good at being a detective, maybe having one of those walls when you have all the strings connected one to another. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Now, these people, there are many units around the world and they are all successful in their own way. But the biggest one are usually the art crime team of the FBI in the United States. They even have released an app called Stolen Art app, where you can see which paintings have been stolen. Yeah,
you're kidding. I'm going to download it today.
Great.
That's neat. I didn't know about that.
Yep, they did. Then we have the Art and Antiques of the Metropolitan Police in London.
Oh, yeah.
And let's not forget about the oldest one, the Carabinieri squad in Italy.
Oh, and I've got a good story for you. So
You do?
I just read this. Yeah. It actually ties in art theft and art forgery.
Oh, wow,
So,
okay.
yeah. So evidently, one of these units, probably the folks in Italy, got wind of the fact that a painting was going to be stolen from a church in Italy, in this town. And it's a very, once again, a very valuable painting. I think something about $4 million, and painted by an artist called Peter Bruegel the Younger. And it's a crucifixion scene. So a lot of times in artwork over the past few hundred years, you'll see a lot of biblical scenes repeated. the stories from the Bible, and this crucifixion, which was hanging in this church, evidently was a target. But what the police did, which was so smart, they had a forgery made. Now, of course, it was a really kind of a fake, not a forgery, because they knew, obviously, that it wasn't real. But it must have been well done. I would love to have seen it. They actually took down the real painting and put it away safely and put this forgery up. And
That's
sure
so
enough,
smart.
like a month later, the thieves arrived, they broke in, and they stole the forgery. But the real painting remains safe. I don't know if they've caught the people with the fake painting or not. But I just thought that was really brilliant.
So when it comes to stealing a painting,
Or anything for that matter.
there are not too many benefits, if you ask me. So I would say don't do it.
You saw us slicing that painting earlier on. I would keep box knives away from any masterworks.
Yep.
But if you're interested in any of these stories we were talking about today, want to have a closer look at the artwork or learn a bit more about art theft, go to our website, which is artadventures-tv.com.
We look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about artificial intelligence.
The future is here.
Yes, it is. And Elizabeth knows it.
And you'll find out why when you tune in next week.
See you next week.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
This is a $2 million painting, Elizabeth. How dare you?
It's Mo Diggly somebody or other.
You forgot my line.
What is your line?
That was hurtful. Because you said I should have brought someone with more theft experience.
I say, just stop shouting. Hurry up. Hurry up. We only have a few seconds. All right. I'm sorry, because I was looking at the camera already. All right, I'll just start.
Elizabeth has her own show on the side.
Keep yourself in towards the painting when you go like it's... Well, no, I don't mean... Modigliani.